a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are. And like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our colors. We are heroes and dreamers. We are restless believers.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is, wherever you are. This is Gail of Gaia, and this is Free Range, where we graze on wild ideas, and we have wonderful guests. And let me tell you a little bit about the guests I'm having on today. We intended on doing this show about a week ago, but had some technical difficulties. I'm sorry, that wasn't supposed to happen. I just seem to have luck with this show. Anyway, let me finish what I was trying to say with James, and that is that he's a researcher, an author, a natural health proponent, and an activist who believes that the old systems are rightfully crumbling down, and so we must build their replacements quickly. And in March of 22, James uncovered some documents regarding the proposed amendments to the international health regulations, and he's been instrumental in raising awareness about them. And that's why I'm having him on the show, because he has some very vital information. There's deadline dates, and we need to act. So, James, welcome.
Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it. Technical difficulties aside, I'm glad to be here, and look forward to sharing some information with you and everyone who's listening.
Well, everything is recording this time as originally planned, so we're good to go today. So far, so good. Anyway, but why don't you tell us a little bit about what this is all about? You're the expert here on this, and it's regarding the World Health Organization and the United Nations.
Well, it's a long story, and many people may have varying amounts of awareness of what's going on, but I'll cut to the punchline, okay? And we had shared a graphic earlier. Maybe you could pop up that graphic, okay, and we'll get right to the point. This is not a deadline for you or I necessarily to accomplish anything. This is a deadline that the World Health Organization is obligated to meet, and given the opportunity, they will cheat. And so there are negotiations going on. They have been for over a year to amend an existing international agreement known as the International Health Regulations. And Article 55 of those regulations says that any nation can submit amendments to the IHR, as it's abbreviated, International Health Regulations, but they have to do so 4 months in advance of their yearly meeting. Well, they meet at the last week of May every year, and it's scheduled to begin May 27th. So 4 months in advance of that is January 27th, which is right around the corner from when we're recording this, but maybe somebody will watch this in a little ways. If it's already past January 27th, everyone on Earth should have access to whatever proposed amendments any nation or group of nations or the working group may have submitted to be considered in May. And the reason for Article 55 is it gives you 4 months to consider what the heck is going on. So, I'll just read this and then we could go back to just talking. According to Article 55 of the International Health Regulations, the deadline to submit amendments for consideration at the 77th World Health Assembly is January 27th, 2024. If the final version of the proposed amendments to the International Health Regulations are not properly submitted before the deadline, then the amendments may not be considered during the 77th World Health Assembly, which begins on May 27th, 2024. Well, that's the the rule that is part of the international health regulations, and they are likely to try to cheat because they said they were. I published, we're still sharing the screen. I don't know if you can let that go, and then we'll just be the two of us. Beautiful.
Yeah.
They claimed back in October, and I have all of this on video and many different articles that I've published since October. They are actually having difficulty getting the nations to agree to what originally back in September of 2022, 94 different nations submitted 197 pages of amendments, over 300 amendments, to essentially an 80-page document. So needless to say, they're considering some serious changes. And in October, they said, well, we're not going to make our deadline because they're not able to get everybody to agree. Then they proceeded to talk for about an hour, planning how they're going to just ignore the rule. The analogy
Just
that
push it through.
Well, the analogy that I use is getting your mom or dad to write you a note saying that your dog ate your homework because you didn't finish your term paper on time. Okay.
Okay.
They,
One of those, huh?
they stated that they were going to write some sort of document to submit, hopefully before January 27th, explaining how the rules don't apply to them and they could just keep negotiating right up to the last minute. They've already scheduled meetings for February and April. And if you recall, I believe it was with Obamacare, Nancy Pelosi very famously, when, this 1,000+ page
Just sign
bill,
it. We'll read it later.
You can read it later.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, in the U.S. Congress, there is no rule. There should be, but there is no rule like Article 55 that says, hey, you got to give us enough time to really think it over. But there is a rule in the World Health Assembly, and they have every intention of trying to break it. And so, number one, we all have to just be aware and try to raise everyone's awareness. We don't have to necessarily accomplish anything by January 27th. They are the ones who are tasked with accomplishing something. And they've already said they're going to fail. What we need to do is just spread the word as far as possible and demand transparency. Demand an end to this secrecy. Now, they did receive all of these documents back on September 30th, 2022. All of the nations submitted their proposals. They kept it secret until mid-December. So well over a year ago, approximately 13 months ago, I started reporting on what the originally submitted proposals were. But for the next year and a month, zero has come out of the working group in terms of an updated draft of version 2.0, whatever you want to call it. They have been completely secret. Now, there's 300 amendments that we can talk about, but at this point, any of that would really be speculation, because I would have to, figure that after a year plus of negotiating, something has been kicked out, maybe something new has come in, and maybe some things have been changed. We deserve to see by January 27th whatever the heck it is they're planning to propose. Now, a handful of things can happen between now and then, and maybe some things that I can't think of might happen. But any nation has the right to submit a package of amendments that they want to have considered. So maybe some nation will say, well, all of the nations are not agreeing, but we got a group of nations here, and here's what we agree to. Any individual nation or group of nations could do that. The working group could magically come up with a document that everybody agrees to. I think some of the nations were pushing for, well, let's just submit what we do agree on, right? Well, they keep using this saying. If you've heard the saying about COVID and the jab, no one is safe until everyone is safe. Well, they twisted that around and they say nothing is agreed until everything is agreed. So it's going to be kind of hard for them to argue to put forth a short list of things that they agree upon. I thought they wanted to, agree on everything. So I'm just encouraging everyone to speak up and be the media, record your own version of what I've recorded for myself of, hey, we need to see whatever it is you think you're going to try to shove through in May.
Well, maybe one of the reasons that we should be able to see it, maybe you might reveal some issues that they have in some of these regulations, which could be pressing to Americans' freedom.
Certainly. Let me give one little tiny example from the somewhat distant past. Anyone who's aware of what the Trans-Pacific Partnership proposed treaty was a decade ago, it was very similar. It was secretly being negotiated. They were planning to vote on it. The word got out, and quite frankly, just general public uproar raised the issue. That was so secret, only select Congress people were allowed to go into a secure room. They couldn't photograph it, they couldn't bring their phones in. They were allowed to see it, but they had to just remember whatever it was they saw. I personally have never actually seen that document. It may have at some point, leaked out. But during the whole negotiating push and the public blowback against it, it was kept secret. And so this in many ways is very similar. Now we do know some of the things that were initially put in, but what I really want to make sure everybody understands is this is not about your health. Okay. They are not talking about whatever mistakes might have been made over the past 4 years. They're not talking about what they could have done better, what worked, what didn't work. They're not interviewing doctors or nurses or any kind of practitioners. They're not dealing with any of the side effects and the dangers of the.
We
As
are on
they,
YouTube, so yeah.
That's not what they're talking about.
That's what's amazing.
Okay,
Because it's supposed to be about health, right? But it's not.
Because if you actually read the international health regulations, or if you just read a little sentence at the beginning of Annex 1, which talks about what the requirements are, it would be better named the International Surveillance, Monitoring, Reporting, Emergency Declaring, Fear-Mongering Control Regulations. And that's what they're trying to strengthen. More surveillance, more monitoring. And what prompted these negotiations is so insane. I'm going to have to ask everybody watching to just, erase the blackboard of your mind. Just forget about the vast majority of the things that because if you would try to apply that knowledge, none of what I'm about to say is going to make any sense. It's just insane. So if you could go back a little more than 2 years, on December 1st, 2021, they had just ended a special session. They had 2 sessions of the World Health Assembly in 2021. And what they had decided was that over the year 2021, the jabs that rolled out and the other drugs like remdesivir and all of the other medications, according to the relatively less wealthy nations, were not distributed equitably. And that's, you hear people talking about equity, right? In this context, what they're talking about is the wealthier nations, Israel, the United States, the European Union, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, they got contracts to buy up all of the production of the jabs. And like the United States bought up all of the resource of remdesivir. And so the smaller, less wealthy nations were upset that they were not given access in an equitable fashion to these life-saving, wonderful new technologies and all the drugs. So you have to suspend your awareness of how lucky they really were, because they seem to have suspended that awareness as well. They are still negotiating a trade dispute. It's not about health. They're not questioning whether or not these injections did what a vaccine is supposed to do, or they're actually biological weapons designed, to create patients and end people's lives. They're still fighting for more. They want the intellectual property and the manufacturing know-how and the investment capital to manufacture those biological weapons in their own country so they can profiteer off of the next pandemic amongst their own people. Because, quite frankly, in Africa and more poor nations, only 25% or so of the people fell for the story the first time. They were lucky that they didn't have 10 times as many jabs as they needed, but they haven't apparently either realized that or want to face it. They're at the table to try to get their piece of the pie of billions of dollars in investment to build out the pharmaceutical hospital emergency industrial complex.
In other words, they don't care about their people's health. They care about the money that they can make through this whole entire process. This is why the people that have been responsible for all this need to be held accountable in each nation. But anyway, Lenny has a question. What it is about is taking away the law from governments. Would you say that? And they would be in charge instead of the individual government? Is that what these?
Well, let me go into a little bit more detail on that particular specific something, because what I'm about to say, I think the vast majority of the alternative media has not really talked about this next thing. As a solution to that inequitable distribution of pandemic-related products, Bangladesh and a group of 47 nations in the African region of the WHO, they both submitted proposed amendments that would have created a new Article 13A. Now, apparently they submitted them separately, but my goodness, they are so close. They're almost identical, but they are a little bit different. And what that would have done as a solution to a trade dispute, okay, is they understand that the Director General can declare a public health emergency of international concern, PHEIC, or fake, pretty much anytime he wants. And he did that with what I call moneypox over the advice of the advisory committee that voted to say, no, it's not an emergency. He said it was an emergency anyways. So they know that he can declare a public health emergency of international concern. And Article 13A would then go further and say that he would be empowered to decide what is needed for that emergency. Then he would set up an allocation mechanism, and he would be able to tell Nation X, whomever may have the manufacturing capacity to make what he said was needed, to have their manufacturers make it and give it to Nation Y. Now, by my understanding of economic philosophy, that's about as totalitarian, dictatorial, Marxist, Leninist control the means of production and logistics and distribution as anything I think anyone could imagine. So I would have to guess that over a year, some of the people in these negotiations might have had something to say about that. Okay. But as far as anyone can tell, that's still being negotiated. Now, here's where a lot of people got confused, or maybe overstepped what was really going on. Bangladesh also put forth a change to a definition of a couple of words. Those terms are standing recommendation and temporary recommendation. The definition of both of those is non-binding advice. Well, you can talk to a grade school kid. They know that a recommendation is advice and you can take it or leave it. Well, Bangladesh proposed crossing out non-binding so that it would just be advice. And then Malaysia proposed a change to Article 42 that said recommendations shall be implemented, which means in legal terms, that means they must be implemented. So the gist of all of that is taking a recommendation. If Tedros said, hey, Pfizer, United States, could you make some of this and give it to them, please? Hey, you don't have to. Maybe it would make sense, but that's not what this would imply. This would imply that when he made that recommendation, it was actually an order and that they would be obligated, legally bound, to implement his recommendations. It's kind of like when your mom or dad recommends that you clean up your room. Okay.
Okay, we got a couple questions coming up that you might be able to answer.
Sure.
First of all, Short Order Cook said, I would love to see the contracts that governors signed. It's not a coincidence that now they are building factories in these priority countries. So true what you're saying. But then he goes on to say this, James, do you know anything about the contract out clause for this worldwide emergency? I heard clause, it's in the 601 section where the country can just say no thanks.
I always give everybody my phone number. My phone number is 310-619-3055. 601 is not a section number in any of the documents coming from the WHO. It may be in some state code or some other document. So I don't know if that applies directly to the things I'm talking about. You're more than welcome to text me or call me after we're done here. The issue, though, that's being raised is the issue that I'm raising, which is, hey, what's with all the secrecy? Why are all these contracts redacted and secret? What are you all doing there? You're trying to, improve our health, but you're doing it all behind closed doors.
It's all about the money.
Exactly. So I encourage whoever posted that. That number is, like the highest article number in the IHR is like 60 something, and in the other agreement document, it goes up into the 30s. There is no 601, so happy to look into what that might be, but it doesn't seem to apply to the WHO's documents.
Okay. Well, one of the things that some people have said, and I'm kind of in favor in that, is that why doesn't the U.S. just exit both the UN and the WHO?
Well, I'm trying to make taking action on that very simple. You have your choice. If you go to exitthewho.com, you can show your support and reach out to Congress to talk about HR 79, which is the WHO Withdrawal Act. I think we've already.
No, not that one either. Yeah, I'm here. I'm just trying to find the right. Wait a minute. I was trying to find exit the UN. That's
no, it's exitthewho.com. If you go to exitthewho.com.
Oh, that's a different one. Okay.
Yep. HR 79 is really very simple. It's a page and a half, and it essentially says we'll give the WHO notice that we're leaving because we agreed to give them a 1-year notice when we signed up, pay them any money that we might be obligated to pay, and reject or repeal the legislation from 1948 that got us involved in the first place. So that is to get out of the WHO. I think we've already got 50 some members of Congress on board with that. You can also go to stoptheglobalagenda.com, stoptheglobalagenda.com, and that is two pieces.
I'll share this one first. And hang on a second. This one here, this was from your.
Yeah, this is stoptheglobalagenda.com. This is what I was just about to say. This piece of legislation actually is two. If you scroll down a little bit, there's a couple of different bill numbers. There's companion legislation in the House and in the Senate, and they both would exit the WHO and also exit the United Nations. And so I've tried to make it very simple here. If you scroll down a good bit, you'll see a big red thing that says take action. And so we've set it up where,
There it is. Yeah.
there you go. Probably can't miss it. Down below, I think there's 6 different actions. You can send a pre-written email to your congressperson. You just put in your zip code. It knows where to send it. You can edit it if you want to rant and rave a little bit more than I did. It helps you make a phone call. It helps you tweet at them. It helps you to actually record a video and have that go out to them as well. So trying to make it easy for people. There's 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. There's a script that you can use as a template to talk to your staff member or whoever you call. Trying to make it easy for people.
Yes, it is very easy. It's wonderful. People couldn't ask for it to be any easier. I mean, all you have to do is click it, sign it, and you can send it out to, every one of the 100 United States senators, plus the people in your own state. So I would encourage everyone to go here and to do this. It's so simple.
Yep. And so, ultimately, if you use the analogy of maybe you got into somebody got into a relationship and it started out all wonderful, back in 1948. Oh, we're going to help everyone in the world be healthier. And maybe at the outset, some people involved, that was their goal. The issues of pure water and healthy food and, many things, probably a lot of good was done. But when you look at, video that you can still see around the world of people who don't have access to good, pure drinking water, they have to walk, many kilometers to bring back a couple of jugs of water. And you ask yourself, is it really the most important thing to spend tens of billions of dollars on laboratories to go searching the countryside for, pathogens that have pandemic potential?
Just like vaccines, why don't they give people good food, clean water, sanitary conditions that would make all the difference in the world? But they never do that. It's always about the pharmaceutical approach.
It's the reason why they don't do it is, the people who are in charge of distributing the money don't get to hold on to that money. They want it to cycle back around. That's what money laundering is all about. It doesn't make the money any cleaner. It just circles it around. Okay. It's like, if you understand the concept from Benito Mussolini of fascism, it's government and corporations working together to take advantage of the people. Well, I believe that in the 21st century, fascism got an upgrade and it got a third leg, which now makes it unbelievably powerful, very stable. And that third leg are all of the foundations and non-government organizations that are there to receive money from the government and or donate it to a body like the WHO, but it comes with strings. Oh, we'll donate this money, but you have to do what we want you to do with it. Then it gets contracted out to corporations that they are tied to, and it all goes around in a circle. And so 84% of the WHO's budget was donated over and above any obligated dues by the various nations. And so they are not acting in the best interests of the world and the people of the world. They, there's a saying, I think it's something along the lines of he who pays the piper calls the tune. So if these organizations are donating 84% of their budget, that money is doing what those donors wanted to do. Bill and Melinda Gates is, pushing probably billions of dollars, but certainly many, many millions of dollars into eradicating polio. But most of the cases of polio that are out there are of the strain that is found in the vaccine. So you scratch your head and you go, are you trying to eradicate polio or are you trying to cause it? And, what about all
You gotta
the
be careful here.
Yeah, exactly. And so recently the WHO has started begging for money They are holding meetings. The executive board is meeting the 22nd to the 27th. And like all good communist organizations, they're going to be talking about funding their 4-year plan from 2025 to 2028. They refer to it as the 14th General Program of Work. They're going to be having events quarter of 2024. They're planning on spending millions of dollars to wine and dine national heads of state and the boards of directors of all of these foundations. They're going to be spending millions of dollars to try to raise, they say they need $7 billion for what they're planning 2025 to 2028, which is essentially working towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And so if you realize that what they're trying to do is so far divorced from what actually makes people keep their health, optimize their health, or regain their health, um, they need to be abolished, in my personal opinion. And, I think whether you believe in the biblical story of creation and men and women have been on the planet for thousands of years, or evolution and it's been far longer than that, whatever that time period is, I think we did pretty much okay without the World Health Organization. And I think we'll do much better off after they leave the planet.
Yeah. Oh, Lenny brought up a point with the WHO in that they were looking for money because Mr. T cut off the United States contribution a while ago. I don't know if that's changed.
Well, let me clarify that, because I actually have an interesting story about many things related to that. What actually happened was I believe it was July, but it was certainly in the summer of 2020. Secretary of State Pompeo sent a letter to the WHO giving them 1 year's notice, as we're obligated to do, that we were going to be leaving. They stopped giving him money, but they gave hundreds of millions of dollars to the Gavi Vaccine Alliance. So I don't know that that's necessarily any better, but that's what happened. When Biden got into office, one of the first things he did was rescind the notice that we were leaving. So we technically never left. And then he has been giving the WHO quite a large amount of money. The United States is currently the largest donor in 2022, over and above our obligated payments of about $250 million. We gave an additional $750 million to the WHO, and Biden signed in a little more than a year ago, December of 2022, he signed the National Defense Authorization Act, which set up the World Bank Pandemic Fund. The Defense Department budget includes an additional $1 billion to go to the World Bank Pandemic Fund. They've distributed that to nations through the WHO, and essentially to set up more biological laboratories around the world. So you have to be careful with these folks, because money flows in hidden ways, and it all ends up in the pockets of people who profit from other people's illness. I'll ask everybody a really simple question. Other than you or your maybe immediate family, who profits when you're healthy? The issue is the profit incentive goes to those who do things when you're ill. Now, sometimes people need help when they're really, really sick or have had an accident or what have you. But there is no incentive anywhere to actually keep people healthy. And that's really the root of the problem. And, these folks have figured out how to profit from it. And, maybe we'll wrap it up, and I'll wind it up with this. Back in November of 2022, the Indonesian health minister, who was reporting on this World Bank Pandemic Fund, he said to the B20, which are the business leaders, the largest nation's business leaders. He said that they've set up this multi-billion-dollar fund. Go invest. This is a great business opportunity. Laboratories, laboratory equipment, testing equipment, anything to do with whatever the next pandemic might be is an enormous moneymaker. It's a growth industry. And that's what these negotiations really are. It's a trade dispute that they're haggling over. Everybody's sitting at this table trying to divvy up the pie and go home with, promise of contracts in the future to build more laboratories and manufacturing plants to make things that I personally believe harm people.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
it's got nothing to
But they
do.
can make money off of that.
Absolutely. That's what we're dealing with. That's why I'm demanding that we need to see whatever the latest version is before January 27th, as per their rules, and whatever they think they're going to try to slip through in May, as long as millions of people around the world are watching and seeing what they're trying to do and speaking up in opposition to it, we have to understand that they're trying to rob us. They're trying to kill us, but they're also trying to rob us. And we need to say no. We need to be very clear that we're not having any of this, and certainly not in secret. We need to see whatever it is they think they're going to be doing according to their own rules by January 27th. And if they don't provide it, they don't get to make any changes at all at their May assembly.
So we want total transparency. We don't want them sneaking something through that we're not even aware of.
Mhm.
And then come to find out later, they can start another one of these things like they did before, and then demand that you take certain actions, and you won't have anything to say about it.
Exactly.
We're
Exactly.
taking away your God-given American rights in other countries as well. And I put some links up in the chat for you to look at where you can actually send letters, just as we showed earlier, and make sure that your Congress knows how you feel about this. We need to exit both the UN and the WHO. And I agree with Dr. Rima, the World Holocaust Organization.
One of the other things that I encourage people to do is actually very simple. Why, and other than you, thank you, Gail, why is the vast majority of the alternative media silent about this? So whomever you may get information from who is part of the alternative media, reach out to them, share this video with them, and say, why aren't you doing what Gail Gaia is doing? Why aren't you reporting on this? Now, there are hundreds, probably thousands of alternative media, organizations and personalities. Okay. And so you can try to convince your neighbor or your cousin or your uncle or your family or whatever. Okay, fine. But if you convince someone who has an audience to report on this, that's a force multiplier. Now, I encourage everyone to get out their camera and record whatever it is they want to say. People do TikTok videos, Twitter videos, all kinds of things all the time. If you go to my Substack, james.roguski.substack.com, I did one this morning. I published it. You can see, we want transparency. Feel free to do a better job than I did. There are people who have far more talent. They're far more creative. They're artistic. They're musical. If you look through a handful of the samples that I put on that page, down at the bottom, there are over 600 alternative media organizations. Why are they not talking about this? Well, reach out to them and send them your message and let them know that we want everyone to demand transparency, end the secrecy. And if by some chance the working group for these amendments does publish a document, because we bludgeon them into submission, then we won't need to speculate on what's going on in secret. We can have a discussion, a debate about it. We can talk about what it is that they're, proposing. And if it's good, which I doubt, okay, fine, because they're not talking about the things that they should be setting regulations about. They have, according to their constitution in Article 21, the authority to set standards for how terminology is defined. Well, there is no definition of a vaccine or a pandemic. It'd be nice to have a definition. They have the authority to set standards for cause of death, which was a fiasco over the last 4 years. They can set standards for diagnostic tests. Any use of the PCR process as a diagnostic is an embarrassment. They have the authority to set standards for purity of biological and pharmaceutical products. Well, all of the contaminants that have been found in these jabs, there should
And they're not
be
talking
standards.
about those kinds of things, are they?
And last but not least, they're not talking about setting standards for advertising and labeling. Labeling includes the inserts that were blank, and advertising, hold on a moment, safe and effective? I don't think so. I think that's false advertising, not to mention misbranding, biological weapon gene therapy as a, safe and effective vaccine. So they've failed for 76 years to ever put standards for the things I mentioned in the international health regulations. They've never done that. And they're not planning on doing it this time around either. We need to see that they're failing to do what needs to be done while they're negotiating a trade deal to fund the pharmaceutical industry. I say no, but it's hard to say no when they're hiding the document that I want to say no to. So that gets into speculation, and that has to end. That's why Article 55 is there. Give us 4 months to see what you're planning on doing. And I venture to guess that we, the people, will shoot it down, whether we get to see it or not.
Oh yeah, here's a couple of comments by Short Order Cook, and then we'll wrap this up. Okay, he said it's exhausting just trying to unjumble and interpret their lies and justification. Definitely. Gobbledygook writing. And he also says he remembers when health professionals were starting to talk and they were shut down and made to shut up. And that's a real problem. We need to get out of these organizations because they are not in the interest of people's health. They're in the interest of making money.
Exactly.
And that's sad. So since they are not functioning in the category that they should be, why would we even want to be there with them?
I absolutely agree. And, thank you for the opportunity to share this with everybody. One last time, all my information is on james.roguski.substack.com. My phone number is 310-619-3055. Look over the information. If you have any questions, happy to help answer them. But the job that needs to be done is just raising people's awareness. So take this video, take the link to this, and just share it with everybody. There's really nothing other than to raise their awareness, because you're not going to hear about this on the mainstream news. And unfortunately, we haven't been hearing about it on the alternative news. So I encourage everybody to be the media.
Exactly. Thank you, James. And I would like to thank all my subscribers, because I help keep you on top of things, because we do, I do put out whenever I think it's something that people really need to do, I get it out there, sometimes before the big guys or the big guns. Because my platform is relatively small, but I operate it entirely by myself, and I only have so much time in the day. But people like Nino should have you on. He has a huge audience. Kerry Cassidy should have you on. There's a lot of people out there that could have you on, and it would get to a lot more people, and that's what we need. So I'm asking my listeners, as James is, to share this and ask people, hey, how come you're not talking about this? You should be talking about this too. Okay.
I think I've done in the 15 days of 2024. I think I've done 40 some interviews already. Happy to talk to anybody about this. Give me a call. But for everybody who's out there, show Gail some love and support. Take this video, and when I say share, I don't mean stick it up as a post on whatever social media account you use and walk away. I'm talking about, think about, with intention and love in your heart, look at all of the names of people that you have phone numbers for in your phone. How many people have you ever sent a text message to? How many emails do you have? Go from A to Z, Ann and Bob and Carol and Dave and Emily, so forth. Send them a message with this video and say, look, just want you to be aware of this. Let me know what your opinion is. Love you. Have a great day. See you later. Bye. Then send them a text message, send them an email, send them a direct message, give them a phone call going, hey, just want to make sure you're aware of this. Go down through your list. It'll probably take you until the deadline of January 27th, but then you will know that you are not censoring this information because of procrastination or laziness. It's not just, oh, I tweeted it. No, I'm talking about reaching out to everyone that you know and love and go, look, you should be aware of this. We need to spread the word because the media is not doing the job.
And I think people know that now. The media is not doing the job. They haven't been doing their job all along here. We wouldn't be in the mess that we're in right now. But that's a whole nother story. So thank you so much, James. I really appreciate what you're doing. And I'll check back with you. And hopefully we do get transparency, and hopefully people take action. Please take action. We all need to take action. Nothing will get done if we just sit by and be complacent. And then we're going to be sorry. They'll be coming and knocking on our doors and forcing us to do something we do not want to do. So we have the power to prevent that from happening. Your part.
Thank you very
Please. Thank you. I don't mean to lecture people, but what the heck? We need action. All right. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
We have found our way. It's a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This is who we are, and like the rising sun, we have just begun to play our part. This is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our colors. We are heroes and dreamers. We are restless believers, stronger than ever. Never say never. Don't look back now. Don't look back now. Destiny awaits. We are all the actors in the stories we is the time we form the chorus. Lift your voice for those before us. We can rely on one another. Feel the pride, let's show our color.